how's it going, everybody? This is Omar T, and this is another exclusive interview on MotivateMe313. I am here with Ruma Begum. Ruma, first of all, thank you so much for joining us live today.
Thank you for having me.
Yep, I'm so glad we have you on. For those of you that don't know, Ruma is in, well, I'm going to let her talk about herself, but I just want to let y'all know she has tons of followers on Instagram and she be doing her thing. So I'm glad that we could do this interview, and I'm glad that we can have a Bengali woman on and to represent her community as well. So my first question that I ask all my interviewees is, can you tell us about yourself?
Okay. So I'll keep it condensed. My name is Ruma Begum. Mahmuda is my first name, actually. A lot of people don't know that. And I grew up in Hamtramck, Michigan. I went to Hamtramck High School. I guess the title would be an influencer, fashion or style influencer. I started back in like 2014 or 15, and it just spiraled off from there. And I continued just playing with it, and photography became a fun thing to do on the weekends, and then it became work. It turned into a brand, and then here I am.
So are you like a photographer? Or are you talking about? Okay.
No. So I'm a style. I guess I would say I'm a style influencer, or a style enthusiast. And from there, I would just create my looks, and then I would have ideas of where to go and shoot it. And then I have photographer friends who create art with their photography, and so we would collaborate. And then I would work with a lot of local Detroit artists to make sure that we all kind of collaborate and work together and go out from there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you are all about collaborating, which is great. You know, you're happy to work with people as well, which is awesome. So, how was it like for you growing up in the city of Hamtramck?
I used to have a love and hate relationship with Hamtramck growing up. I love it now. I moved out in 2017 with my family, so we lived in Hamtramck for about 20 years. We grew up in New York and moved to Hamtramck when I was 8 or 9. And growing up, it's such an eclectic town, so diverse, so beautiful. You could walk down the street, you could find the type of food you want, hookah down the other street, you don't get that in the suburbs here, and I miss that homely feeling a lot. But growing up, it was a little rough too, especially being coming from a conservative family, being a female in that community. It was really rough, so I used to have and then being a first generation kid on top of all of that, trying to figure out what it's like to be an American on top of being Muslim, on top of being Bengali. It was like, it got really confusing at times. But as I grew older and now I look back at it, I appreciate it so much. It humbled me so much growing up in that city.
Yeah, and it's a strong word, is humble, because I feel like it humbled everybody that grew up there and then ended up branching out and doing something differently. Like, it humbles you, and you deal with a lot of different cultures and backgrounds that prepare you for the real world,
Absolutely. Like, you can go out to different cities and states and you just blend in because you have that from home. Like, you don't get that everywhere.
It's true.
So, yeah.
Definitely. And going off of that, my next question to you is, your Instagram, basically, you've been very vocal about the Black Lives Matter movement. So, and why do you feel it's important for people who aren't African American to speak up about this movement?
I always felt like it was necessary to talk about this in our communities because, growing up, especially growing up in Hamtramck, Black culture, Detroit in general, Black culture influenced majority of our lives and then shaped our personalities. So we owe them so much. And the fact that even in our communities, there are dialogues that we avoid, like the anti-Blackness. It's so apparent sometimes, and no one says anything because they just kind of sweep it under the rug. And it's so important to talk about these things so it doesn't exist. And Black Lives Matter is not just a movement, it's a way of life. Like, this should be a way of life, you know, because even in Islam, like, Islam came about to not hate on any race, any color, any people of any sort. Because at the end of the day, we're all, I know this is gonna sound cliche, but we are all God's creation. So if you don't talk about your own brothers, and you're supposed to look at them like your own brothers and sisters, you're not supposed to separate that. But the thing is, it gets separated. And that's the part where a lot of people don't want to talk about. And that's why I feel like it's so important to kind of understand that they do go through things, and they have been put through a lot. Acknowledge that. Give them that credit, you know? Because we fail to do that because of our own colorism. And I don't want to make this about us, because it's not about us right now. It's all about Black lives right now. So that's why it's like, it's hard. It's like you have this sort of like collective shame as a community, like, damn, we didn't do our part within our own community. But it's like, okay, like, I'm here as an ally. Like, how can I help? You know, don't even tell me. I'm just here. I'm standing by you. You know.
Yeah, exactly. And I like how you mentioned that, because people do try to say, you know, you have your own problems, but it's not about us right now.
No.
You know, it really isn't. Like, we'll deal with that when it's time, because this is something that's been going on maybe even longer than our own problems. You know, so it's great that you mentioned that.
It doesn't separate. Like, sometimes it doesn't separate because, like, you know, you hear it like, oh, like, the darker skins are more hated on within our community. The fairer girls or the fairer boys are more liked upon and stuff like that, you know? It's not too far from it, you know?
Exactly. So great words right there. I'm happy that you shared that, especially with the times that we're going through right now. So going back to you though, so what made you want to go into fashion? Like, what made you fall in love with fashion?
Okay, so I always said this growing up, like, I'm a style enthusiast. What I mean by that is just, I love putting pieces together and just making it, like, come alive. Like, you have a vision in your head and just putting it together and making it come alive. Like, that's where the fun is. So, like, you know, I grew up in Hamtramck, you know, we didn't have much growing up. So I never had a Vogue magazine sitting at home. I never, you know, I couldn't afford any of that kind of stuff. So what I would just do is, like, whatever my heart, like, sparked joy, whatever article of clothing. Even I used to dress with my brothers. Like, I was like, let me just see you guys up, you know? Eid came around, I was like, yes, let me just pick out pieces and, you know, make you guys look cute for once. So yeah, like, it was just a part of me. I never, like, thought twice about it. And then when I started, like, seeing when Instagram came out, I was like, well, I want to be a part of this, like, community or whatever is happening here. And then obviously I got a lot of hate from it in the beginning because social media was so brand new at that time. And then people, you know, we have a conservative community. People didn't understand it. Like, you just want validation, you just want attention. And then it just goes from, like, this. But then it's like, when you understand, like, yo, this is an opportunity for me to, if I can use my style and fashion and get out of a box, let me do it. Let me just do it. Yeah. So I used fashion as a tool, and yeah, that's how I was just a style enthusiast growing up.
Well, I'm gonna agree with everything you said, except the part where your brothers never look fresh, because Sipu does have some style. But it might have been because of you, but I'm just letting you know, Sipu has some style.
Give the credit when it's due first, okay? Growing up, it wasn't always like this.
Well, you know what? Great family, man. Like, for those that don't know, Sipu, Mia, we interviewed him earlier. This is the sister of Sipu as well. Great family. So my next question kind of goes about what you were talking about. And so what made you, I know you kind of touched on it, but what made you become an Instagram influencer, or whatever you want to call it?
Okay, so it's going to sound very funny. So, okay, we grew up on the south side of Hamtramck, on Lehman, and then we moved to Jacob. So there was, like, this corner store, A&C Supermarket. You know, it's still there.
Yeah, A&C, of course.
I used to walk by, and my biggest fear was, I'm just gonna grow up and work at this supermarket. Like, that's what I used to tell myself. I'm like, I'm never gonna leave. Like, this is just what's gonna happen, right? So I think that fear instilled something in me to do more, and then to do more outside of the box. So I didn't know what I wanted to do or how I wanted to do it. I just knew always within me that I wanted something more. So when Instagram came out, like I mentioned, I saw like these bloggers, they were posting up stuff, and I was like, yo, I could do this. Like I looked at it and I was like, I could do this. I just gotta post a picture. And then literally like, and I got lucky because one of my best friend Ritu, she's a photographer. So I got really lucky in that sense. And I was like, hey, take my picture, let me doll up, and I'll take your picture too.
Yeah.
And it started that way as a fun kind of game, and then companies started noticing. Like you purchase their item, like a company's item, and then you tag them. And back then it was a lot easier too because it was like chronological orders, and people saw it easier. So that's how the game started, and it just started spiraling from there. And I was like, okay, I understand how this works.
So you mentioned, that companies. So what you get? Do you get advertisement and stuff like that doing the Instagram stuff that you do?
So in the beginning, it wasn't like that. In the beginning, it was just kind of like I would purchase the items, and then I would tag them, and then they would repost, right? It was free work for a really long time. And then later, it became a business thing. I used to, so a lot of people don't know this, but I was a hijabi blogger for 4 years. I went through my own spiritual journey in the past 3 years. It's been like a really like roller coaster of a ride because I'm just finding myself. I guess I can say that. But back to the question, it's just I started working with brands later on, and even then I'm very choosy about it. Like if it doesn't fit with my own brand, then I won't do it. But if I like it, I'll do it. But I try to steer away from a lot of it. Like let's say 10 companies approach me, I'll say yes to maybe 3 or 4. That's how I used to do it. Because it's like whatever fit the actual art and the work, then go for it.
Yep.
If it didn't, then okay, what's the point of me doing it?
That's important that you say that. I actually interviewed someone else that said the same thing, does Instagram as well. My cousin, she said that she does that, and she said it's important because you want to keep your brand. You want to represent yourself. Even the advertisers, you want them to almost represent you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you can forget yourself in the midst of all this, and you do tend to forget yourself a lot of times, and you lowball yourself. If you don't know your worth, you can get lost in that mix. But as long as you can understand yourself and stand your ground, and it's a learning process, like any business, right? It's a learning process.
For sure. Well, I'm glad that you shared that part. Just in case someone may be watching this and might consider that route. So my next question is, you kind of touched on this, but you have a lot of courage and strength doing what you do, being a Bengali Muslim woman. So what has been the hardest thing you've had to deal with being on social media and being an influencer on social media?
Oh man, the hardest. There was a lot of hard parts.
Maybe if you want to keep it PG-13 too. I don't know if because you kind of. No, I'm just joking. You can say what you want to say.
It's all PG-13. I don't even know. But okay, so when I started, like you said, when you start, it gets hard. So like when I started, I lost my train of thought for a second.
Okay.
So when I started, basically, I had to deal with people who weren't familiar with this territory, right? My surroundings, like, they're like, what are you doing? What is this? Like, what kind of path is this? Finish school and stuff like that. So you're dealing with stuff here, and then you're in a public eye, and then you're dealing with public opinions about how you look. They don't like your outfit. They don't like sometimes they make comments about how you wear your hijab or how you wear your dress or how you wear this. So then it got to that. And then later, when I started going through my own journey of finding myself, the cyberbullying was to the max. And when I mean to the max, it was just like, what happened to you? You switched up on us. And I understand that because when people are, they kind of invest in you. When they become a follower, they're not just becoming a number, and we kind of tend to forget that they're actually like looking at your move and what you're doing, and they're kind of like taking notes, like, can I do this? Can I do that? So I understand where it comes from, but at that time, when you're going through so much personal pain and personal journey and things of that sort, you don't know how to deal with like the cyberbullying. So I actually ran away for like a year. I just went and like I went hiding basically, and I had to understand like I'm strong enough to do this. I have to mentally prepare myself every day. And even till this day, I'm still mentally preparing myself. And like, it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do, especially coming from a conservative family, conservative community. You're always kind of like, you always have that in the back of your mind. No matter how far you go, or if you move across the globe, you still have that mental training. So you gotta sit down with those thoughts and be like, okay, I can't be like this. It's different now. Things are different now. I'm doing something different for the bigger picture. And so it's just constant reminders and affirmations and stuff like that.
I'm so happy that you're mentioning this, and I really do hope that, someone in the future or even now can run across this video and see that, because two things I get out of that. Number one is, that's funny that you say that, because I know we were kind of talking about this before we started recording, and how I kind of want my sister to be on, but you have to take everything into consideration. And when I discussed this with her, that's exactly what I was talking about, like the mental toll it will take on you, and how, on a daily basis, you got to be ready to deal with that,
I will say, being a female, like, we consider so many things more than, I don't know if a man will, like, men are more analytical, where they're just straightforward. They're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. They consider it, but they're like, you know what, if I put my mind to it, I got it, whatever. But us females, we think about like our families, our friends, our environment, the future, everything. Like it's so much pressure we put on ourselves that's really not necessary at the end of the day. And I feel like once we can get over that hump of like lowballing ourselves as females, then we'll finally like get to that next step, Yeah. But it's very important, and that's why I wanted to do this for the interview, for your interview, because I love that you're doing this for our community. Because you're right, like your sister, the girls I grew up with, I saw how hard, even myself, we had it so hard at times, because we're just like, I want to be free, not I want to like go and do things that are not PG-13, but it's simple things like me talking to you here about our community. This wasn't even a consideration. This wouldn't be a consideration for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, it's just breaking these barriers and telling people, like, it's okay, man, just do it,
Definitely. And to be honest, to this day, like, I try to reach out to certain people, and they have to turn it down because of the fact that I'm a guy, and they are females, and, and I understand, I respect it, but I just try to do my part and just reaching out. It's almost like a blessing and a curse, because in a blessing way is because it's almost like you're trying to be the best you can be, but the toll that it puts on you is the curse part, and it's tough because you can't impress everybody, no matter what.
No, you're not living for everyone,
Yeah, exactly.
You have to live for yourself first, to live for others, in order to live for others.
Yep, definitely. So going back to, I was mentioning how Sipu is your brother. First of all, Sipu has commented on Instagram with that emoji of that person that's talking, because I guess you're speaking facts right now, like you're speaking this
that talk.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a good thing, because you're speaking the right,
So, he's always been so supportive.
Yeah, so that's actually my next question is, Sipu's a great guy, and I'm guessing your whole family is very supportive of what you do now. So why is having that support from your family very important to you and to your future success?
Yeah, it wasn't always like this. I had to fight really hard for it. I had to stand my ground for it. Shifu has been my number one support since day one. Like, he was my backbone in this. He helped me so much. And it's highly necessary to have that sort of support, because when you're in the public eye, you get lost in so much, You get lost, like, you're dealing with ego battles, and then you're dealing with, like, public opinions, and people who don't even know you, and then you're dealing with so much externally. So when you come home, you need someone to be like, it's okay, you got this. You need that. You need that affirmation sometimes, and from the people you trust and love. That's the most important, because they're looking out for you. they won't say anything. Even if she could criticize something, he's like, I don't really like what you did there, you know?
Yeah.
I'll take it to consideration because I'm like, he's not telling me because he wants the worst for me. He wants the best for me. So I'll listen to that. But a lot of those noises I don't listen to.
Yeah.
It's very important to have that strong family support or your friends.
And it's a good thing that you don't listen to it because, again, you can't impress everybody. You can't make everybody happy. So, it's important that, like I said, like you said, you mentioned that you listen to Sipu because that's someone that actually cares about you. And I think it's important for everybody. Like me, when I wanted to do something or I'm doing this, like I always tell myself, like, I'm going to listen to my family because my family are caring about me the most.
Yeah. But even then, there are times where I will still disagree with Shifu when I know, like, I got it. Like, I know I can handle it. So sometimes it's just also putting that trust in ourselves first and foremost. Like, listen to them, take it in consideration, but make sure you know that your heart is aligned with it. And if it's aligned with it, then go for it.
Awesome. So my next question, I usually ask every guest these 3 questions, which is number 1, tell me about yourself. And then the second one is, what gets you up every morning? So what is your motivational factor?
Yeah, so my life has changed in the past year immensely, but I knew I wanted more for myself. And the first thought I had to train myself was, I deserve better than what I'm used to or getting, and so every day I'm just like pushing for the next best version of me. Like I'm always competing with myself, like who am I gonna be? And I know I have a self-image in my head of who I'm supposed to be or how I'm supposed to be. And I'm like, until I'm that person, I'm not happy. So it's like I'm just chasing after. It's not that I'm chasing, I'm just making sure I'm doing everything I can to shave off like the old habits and the old ways and becoming that person.
That's awesome. That is awesome for you to share that. And then my last question is, for someone who may be walking in the same or similar footsteps as you, what advice would you give them? Motivate me.
Okay. I would say first and foremost, don't play small for anybody. Like, do not play small for anybody. And I always said this, you're not here to please other people. You're not here for other people's comfort. You're not here to show who you are so they can be guided or inspired or whatever the case is. You're here to be authentically you. And so make sure you're happy with yourself first so you can be that person, so you don't have to keep up with an image.
Yeah.
And so if you can do that and keep up with who you are and truly be happy with who you're becoming or and it's going to be a journey because you're not going to always love yourself. That's not always the case, right? It's like, it's a journey, it's a battle. But if you're going on that path to finding out who you are and you're like, okay, I kind of like this person I'm becoming, and you portray that to the world, then you don't worry about who's telling you what and who's, coming at you with some left comment or whatever, because you're like, I worked on myself. I know what I'm capable of. I know what I've been through. So, like, don't play small for anybody. Don't, you're here, and if people value you because of who you are, then you've done your job. But let them decide that. That has nothing to do with you, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. That is great advice. I wish they had that emoji thing where I could do the same thing that Sipo just put on there because he's speaking. No, but seriously, that is awesome what you just said. And basically what I like to end it with is if there's any final thoughts, any final comments you want to make out there, even advertisement or anything that you want to throw out there before we kind of close down this interview. Anything you want to say?
Yeah, I do have something to say. So, like, this is, I guess, for the girls in my community. And, I feel for so many of them because I am one of them, and even when I go back, like, there's so many restrictions and they don't need to be afraid. No one needs to be afraid of certain things that, what people are going to say or how they're going to think of them. As long as God knows their truth and they're being honest with, as a human being, doing righteous basic human rights. Like, as long as you're portraying that and being a good person to people, like, you don't have to worry about all the extra noise. And, those who are afraid to just come, out and speak out and show their personalities, like, just do it. Like, what Nike always says, just do it. But, go for it. Go for it.
That's great final words, and I'm hoping that Nike throws you some money for that advertisement you did right there. No, but that is awesome. Thank you so much, Ruma. Can you just wait once I finish it off, just so we
Yeah.
chat a little
Yeah.
bit once that's all done. But for those that are watching, thank you for tuning in. This was another interview on Motivate Me 313 with Ruma Begum, and I appreciate it.